Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. My name is Cody Sizemore, and I am joined here with my lovely co-host, Maria Casillas. And I don't really know what we're going to be talking today about, to be honest with you. Every now and then we like to just spitball it, Yep. So we'll see where this conversation takes us. But before we get into this unknown territory of where we're going to go with this conversation, I do want to say a couple things before we jump into any of that. Number one, we just always love to show our appreciation to the every weekers, for the people who do listen to us and check this show out every single week. We don't really deserve that. You do that just because you want to, and that means so much to us. It's really what, helps us take this podcast to the next level. And it's honestly what allows us to just keep, the fire stoked for it as well. So we really appreciate you every weekers, and we hope that you, if this is your first time listening, that you also become an every weeker as the weeks progress. So want to say thank you to you. And then we also want to invite you guys into our Facebook group as well. Maybe you're an every weeker and you haven't quite pulled that next step. And maybe this is your first time and you're like, what? There's a Facebook group? Well, hey, we're going to tell you about it right now. Basically what it is, it's a free Facebook group. It's a group full of like-minded coaches. We're in it as well. And we do a lot of cool stuff in there. Sometimes it's just general discussion. People ask questions. This is also where we get a lot of our, topics for the show as well. But we also do other things like a book club or, a meetup or, several different types of things. We even just did a giveaway for our course called Getting Started as a Financial Coach. So there's a lot of things going on in there. So if you want to check it out, the name of the group is the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. So check it out. It's free to join. We'd love to have you and connect with you there. So with all that being said, Maria, how you doing?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well. Thank you. Yourself?
Good. Not too bad.
Good. I will say I'm ready for summer to be over. I'm just going to throw that out there. But okay, outside of that, and I live in Arizona, so it's never going to be over. Let's just skip it.
Autumn is my favorite time of year for several reasons. One, it's the best weather. Where I live, the leaves change. So that's always nice too. And one of my favorite things is that it's going to be football season.
Well,
so, super excited.
Football will be on in our household as well, but not because of me. So anyway, I don't typically talk about the weather, but I have realized that, it's getting so... It's just been hot for so long, and I'm finding that I'm just over it, and I like to continue to just realize that just persevere. Like the cooler weather's coming, just do that. And it's actually something that, if you don't mind, I think I'd like to talk to you about today. Don't worry, I'm not talking about weather. I'm just talking about perseverance in general. I think that sometimes we go at something for so long and sometimes so hard that it feels like if we're not getting those results that we are really hoping for, it almost feels hopeless. And it's kind of like the summer that never ends in Arizona. So I happened to see something in the Facebook group the other day that you had posted, and it was, forgive me because I don't remember all the details, but it was around like you had been working on helping somebody for about 10 months or so. And I don't want to say like selling them for 10 months, but it was kind of like they came to you, you didn't sell them on working with you. You didn't sign them up as a client right away. And I don't remember if 10 months is even right, but I remember it being a long time. And I was like, oh, okay. And I read through that and just really, really appreciated what you said about how even if it's something that doesn't happen right away, it doesn't mean that they're not going to ever do it. No doesn't necessarily mean no, never. It means not now. And I just would like to talk to you about that in that context, if we can.
Yeah. Well, I'd be happy to kind of talk to you about that because that's not the only time that it's happened, but it
Mm-hmm.
is something that happened recently, you know? But you
Yeah.
said something before I even get into explaining that whole situation. You said something that I think really matters. So you said something along the lines of like, you know, if we do something for a long period of time, we put in all this time, energy, resources, and we don't quite get it immediately, that it
Mm-hmm.
starts to wear on us,
Yeah.
right? I guarantee you that we probably have some clients that also feel that way.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
if we are going to be the coaches that help someone persevere through that, to see it through, because we know that there's going to be good coming in the end, we have to do that for ourselves
Yeah.
as well. We can't just like shy away from that and then tell someone not to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say that first because I think it's really important. Really important.
Yeah.
But to get to the topic on hand, yeah, you're talking about a potential client that I met with, and yeah, you know, I'll kind of just walk you through like what that kind of looked like. So it was 10 months ago when I initially had a conversation with this guy, and the initial conversation, his situation was not good. He was maxed out on all of his cards. There were several things in collections. He was negative in his bank account by about $1,000. You know, he was kind of like working at a job, but it wasn't very good. And he was, you know, in the process of trying to find something else and all these different types of things, right? Like someone who clearly needed help, but he didn't have everything in place for me to truly be like, yeah, like step into coaching and I can help you kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But one thing that I picked up from him specifically was that he was a very driven individual. He did not want to roll over and just be like, well, this is just how it is. He didn't want to take the easy route. He knew that he had messed up and he knew that he could correct it. He just needed to get things in place.
What
And
were
that,
some of the indications that he was a driven individual and that he wasn't going to just roll over?
it was just the way he was talking. And it wasn't even with like just what he was saying, but also how he was saying it too.
Tone?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just, you know, like when you talk to someone, there's some people that you can connect with and there's some people that you don't connect with.
Mm-hmm.
And he was someone that I felt like I really connected with.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like an intuitional thing. I don't really know if there's like a, you know, specific thing that was said or anything like that, but it was definitely like a feeling.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay,
You know?
great. Thanks.
Yeah. So I knew that like I wanted to work with him, but I also knew that if I were to offer him my coaching program at that time, the answer would have been no, because he wouldn't be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So with me knowing those two things, he can't do it now, and I want to work with him, I decided to take a different approach with him. And I just said, hey, dude, so this is your situation. And I kind of walked him through it. And he understood exactly where he was at, what he was dealing with, all that kind of stuff. And then I said, from here, these are a few things that I would either do or you know, a few things that I would look into or consider. So I gave him like, you know, 3 or 4 action steps. And then I said, do you think it makes sense for us to stay in touch as you start to develop on these things? And he said, yeah, absolutely. This has been super helpful. I would love that. And I said, okay, great. When do you think it would make sense for us to reconnect? And he said, I think that, you know, maybe in like a month and a half, we can do that kind of thing. So I said, okay, great. So I set myself a reminder, month and a half passed, checked in, and he had made some progress, but like not on everything. So I just kind of texted him. We talked back and forth, and you know, I gave him a few more weeks, maybe like 3 weeks or so, and I texted him again, and some more things developed. So I said, okay, great. So let's hop on another call. So we hopped on another call, talked for about 45 minutes or so, got an update with his situation. He had found a new job, but it was slightly better than his previous one, but still wasn't what he really needed. kind of. And beyond that too, he was still, negative in his account. Now it wasn't as negative, but there was progress, right? So kind of did the same thing with him. Talked through things, just listened to him, was there for him, and then talked about a few new action steps to take. And then, we did the whole thing of like, when should we reconnect? Did basically the same thing, about a month and a half. I texted him, checked in. Again, there was some developments, but not everything. So I did it again in about a month, a month and a half later. And then, hopped on another call with him. And there was a little bit more progress there, to where, he had found another job that was, good for him, but it was a seasonal thing. So there wasn't like a, hey, this is going to be this forever, but right now I have some good traction. So I told him, I was like, this is good now. And with what you have available, this is what I would recommend. But we do need to find something that's going to be a consistent job that's actually going to be good for you. So, sent him out again, just gave him some more value, gave him some more action steps, sent him out again. And then finally, about a week or two ago, he reached out to me and he said, hey, dude, want to give you an update. Found this new job. Here's the situation. I'm going through like a month kind of like probationary period. Actually, this was about a month and a half ago. He said this to me. But then after that month, I'll be getting more hours. My pay will increase. All these different types of things will happen. So I want to give you that update. And then I think that once things kind of stabilize after this probationary period, I would love to hop on another call with you. And I said, okay, awesome. So month passed, reached out again. And I said, hey, dude, are things starting to develop the way that you thought they would? And he said, yes, here's the new situation, blah, blah, blah. And then, we decided to hop on another call. So we hopped on this final call, did exactly what we always did, got an update, talked about how he was feeling, talked about what he was wanting, all this kinds of stuff. And then that was when I was like, okay, this guy has literally gone over the last 10 months and taken the time to talk to me and then executed on the things that we talked about to do. And because of that, he's now in a place to where he's getting his head above water. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And he has the opportunity to really make the most of this. So with that being said, I asked him, I said, hey, dude, we've been talking. I know that we are always, trying to get you into this better situation. And, the idea of coaching was always in the back of the mind. But, it just wasn't the right time. But I feel looking at this now that, there's things that you have opportunity with now. And I'm just curious to see if you're still interested in having that conversation. And he said, yeah, absolutely. Like that was one thing that was a really big driving force for me, is that you've helped me so much up until this point without even coaching. Like I really want to know what your program actually looks like. So I outlined it for him, and then he stepped in and became a client. So my big thing here, and I think that my big intention with that post that I made in the Facebook group, is really just to communicate that there are some people that will have situations like this. There will be some people that you talk to for the very first time and they become a client right away. There'll be people who you talk to the first time that you offer and then they say no right away. But there will be some people that are like this individual that take some nurturing. There will be some people who say no initially and then come back 6 months, a year later. And it's just important to understand when that is necessary, and not just to be in it to get a client, but really be in it to nurture those relationships and truly help people and do what we always say, like meet them where they're at. Kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing all of those details. I'm curious, and think maybe some of our listeners might be as well. There is a fine line between giving away the farm and giving enough so that the person can eat. And so I'm just kind of wondering if there are some examples that you wouldn't mind sharing of, like, what are some of those, maybe some of those action steps that you were able to give to this individual, that obviously not all of them, you did it several different times, but just a couple examples of some small action steps that you felt would help move the needle for him and not give away the farm, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is something that I think is really important, because you want to help people to get to that next step, but you don't want to give them everything to where, like, they don't feel like they need to invest into coaching, kind of thing. Now, you can hear me say that and you could think like, oh, well, that's just wrong. Like, cool, feel that way. I don't care. But really, it's not wrong. It's not wrong, because there's a reason as to why they weren't able to figure it out on their own. It's because there's pieces missing. So some of the actual, like, action steps was, I mean, the obvious one was like finding that consistent job that actually was good for them, that actually made them a livable wage where they could pay their bills, their debts, and still have something left over to help dig themselves out of that hole. Another one was that, when we initially spoke, with the job that he had at first, he was investing, I think, like 10% in his checks to go into his 401k. And I was like, dude, that's great, but right now you need income. So let's pause that for now. We'll come back to that, but like right now you need to survive, kind of thing, not invest for 40 years down the road or 30 years down the road, kind of thing. Like, you need to take care of yourself now, kind of thing. So, like, those are just a couple examples of just, like, some actionable steps that a person could take. But with every single time that we talked, I always ended the conversation, and even going into the conversation about stepping into coaching, I said, these things we need to fix and we need to get into place so that they can serve you. But that's just the beginning, because there's other things that you also have going on that really need to be addressed. And that's where the coaching comes into play, such as your relationship with money and your spending habits and why you spend a certain way, where all that kind of comes from, such as, having some of those money psychology conversations so that when things do get hard, that you don't lose focus because you have ADHD, like different certain things like that. Right. And that was me kind of planting the seed of, like, that's the importance of coaching. But right now we're focused on this, but this is something that needs to be addressed later, because even if you were to get a job that makes good money, it won't really matter, because you won't be able to make that progress the way that you really, really want and desire to. Right?
Yeah. If I may, as a outside observer, one of the things that I saw is that, okay, so we'll just use the two examples that you gave. One was get a different job. And that is something that basically he knew. He knew that at his core. He knew what he had to do. And oftentimes our clients or potential clients, they do know some of the steps that they need to do. And so
he needed to hear it, though.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say, is he needed to hear that from somebody else, and maybe even have a little bit of that accountability, which I know that if you're not working with him directly, he might not have as much accountability as if he was a full-time client of yours, but just the monthly check-in could have been enough of that, anticipated accountability that made him go, I'm going to have to check in with this guy next month. I should probably at least be looking for a different kind of job. But the other example that you used was about his investing. And I think that was so important that you were the person who told him that, because he didn't know that intuitively. There are so many mixed messages going around. And what you were able to do was give him a sneak peek into what having that third set of eyes, and maybe his case, maybe the second set of eyes, on something like that's impartial and it still was able to move the needle for him. So that I'm bringing that to the attention of our audience, Cody, because I think that if we're trying to find steps like what you were describing, we need to be strategic about that and allow them to get that sneak peek of what it is that we bring to the table. Because if you are just going to tell them the same thing that either they already know or they would hear from somebody else, then that's not going to set you apart. But that second part that you threw in there, that actually was something that, not everybody it's not common sense. And so he needed someone like you to do that. So I just wanted to share that. And then as you were talking about closing each of those conversations, I just want to point out how brilliant that is. I mean, it's letting them know that there is so much more. And so it is your way of not giving away the farm. You're still giving away enough food. This is just obviously the analogy, but you're giving them enough to be able to survive and eat on for a little while they fatten themselves up so that they can be in a position to work with you. But you're letting them know ahead of time, look, there's so much more that there is down. And it will, the way you planted the seed, that seed is like, it will affect your results later on. If you don't address it, even all of the progress you've made up into this point probably will get reversed if you don't address some of the other foundational stuff. And that, I believe, is probably what he's paying for when it comes to coaching with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's reversed maybe, but even if he were to just have a little bit more comfortability, for him specifically, he wanted comfortability, but what he really wanted was to accomplish the big goals that he had. And that was my way of telling him, like, hey, like, you could get a new job. You could make a decent income. But because of these other issues that we have talked about at length, even with that, you might get a little bit more comfortable, but you won't get what you want. Truly.
Right. I love that you used his words in both contexts. You might get this thing that you want, and you're also not going to get the thing you really want.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. That is what he's investing in now as he steps into coaching, because he recognizes, like, I am more comfortable because I am making more of an income, but I still don't have what I want. And I know that even with me making this income, there's still money going through the cracks because it has the ability to now. Right?
That's right.
But I don't want that to go through the cracks. I want it to go towards my goals, kind of thing. And that's why I need coaching. Right?
Yeah.
So it's important for you to understand a person as well. And if I didn't take the time to understand him on that deeper level in that initial call that we had, when I knew that his situation wasn't, viable to invest into coaching, then I wouldn't know how to talk to him throughout the other updates. And then I also wouldn't know how to speak to him so that he feels heard, so that he feels understood when I eventually offered the coaching. So that's really, really important, is like, even if you feel like it's a lost cause, don't hold back on people, because it's going to be good for them, and it's also going to be good for you in the long run.
Yeah. Well, and simply put, you were serving him. And I think that's what's so important about what we do is that, I don't think that it's a bad thing. Like what you said earlier, like, if you don't like that, too bad. I agree with you. It's not a bad thing to want to allow somebody to invest in themselves for coaching. And it's not all about the money for us. It really is about serving the other individual. And this is a really good way to prove that to yourself, to the individuals, and to other people who are watching, because you served that individual in a way that didn't cross a boundary, and also didn't keep him from then investing later, because he realized that was actually an even bigger serve later on. It wasn't like a trade, I'm trading my time and your money and all that. He realized it was just a foundational beginning. And then he was able to double down on that later on with you when the circumstances were different. So yeah, that's really, really incredible. I'm so glad that you posted that. And I know that our coaches are watching the things that we're putting in there, because they know whether if they've had that experience, they know it, but if they haven't, they know they probably will. And I think that's why that group is so important, is because, we're all on different paths at different times with different circumstances. And if something's happening for somebody, chances are you'll experience something very similar. And it's a really good way to understand, like, how do I handle that? So thank you for posting it there, Cody. I really appreciate that. And then, of course, for unpacking all of those details here for us. The perseverance part is, like you said earlier, like if we're feeling that and our clients would then feel it, this is his way. I'm just kind of bringing it back for you. He was persistent. He persevered for some time in that 10 months, and then even doubled down on his perseverance by saying, you know what, it's time. I'm going to go ahead and see what I've got to gain by actually investing in Cody's services for myself.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So. Wow. All right.
Good combo.
Yeah. Thank you. And you know what? Maybe when it's cooler here, we can talk about something that's not weather related. Yeah. No, I'm teasing. I appreciate this conversation, and I love how we sometimes just get there by figuring out what's going on in our own individual lives. So thank you so much, Cody, for all of this today. And thank you to each and every one of you who's listening today, who listened last week, and who are excited to tune in next week for another edition of the Financial Coaches Podcast. We look forward to seeing you there. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.